Hey y'all, welcome to the budgeting template tutorial. Thank you so much for being here. Before we jump into the setup, there are a few quick things to know. I've got my template in front of me, I've got my notes. If you're more of a visual learner, this video is your step-by-step guide, but if you ever want to go back and reference something later, I've also included a written version for easy access. This is a live link. Any updates will be automatic for you to see. And just a reminder, the walkthrough for the budgeting template is just for the template as the tool. It's not one-on-one budgeting advice. One-on-ones are definitely something that I want to do in the future. I just don't have time right now with my full-time job. But if you do run into any bugs or issues with the template itself, feel free to reach out to my help email, help@mackenzie-mac.com. I will also be adding frequently asked questions periodically to the written instructions as I get them. Same goes with any YouTube comments. I will take frequently asked questions and just add them to the written instructions so you guys will have those live. You can also create a new copy here, but I recommend you keep a blank template on your personal Google Drive to make a copy year over year. And if you're interested in pop culture, media, financial education, or just want to stay inspired while you budget, don't forget to subscribe to the Pop Finance Report newsletter and my Radical Wealth newsletter. And of course, I have all of my links in my Sansor. Now that we covered that, it's time to get started with the actual template. And we're going to start with the planning tab. This is where you'll set up your plan for the entire year. At the very top, you'll choose which month you want to begin budgeting. This helps the entire template flow chronologically. So if you choose April, for example, all the months will start in April and end through March. So it's going to give you 12 months, no matter which month you start with. But just to make it easy, we're going to start with January. Next, you're going to enter your income for the entire year under the annual income plan section. If you have more than one income stream, like a full-time job and a side hustle, you can break those out separately. So let's add salary, income, side hustle. Maybe you have high yield savings account, interest. These will be your take-home numbers. So after tax and deductions, basically whatever is hitting your bank account that you can budget with. So we're just going to estimate like 4,000, maybe you make 500 at your side hustle and 50 bucks from your high yield savings account. What I like to do is just extend these out throughout the whole year. If you have a bi-weekly paycheck, that means you have 2 months that have 3 paychecks. So what I would do is just go in and let's say April is one of them, you'd have 3, so that's 6,000. And I'll just say October is 6,000. So now you can kind of make a plan with what to do with that money ahead of time. Sorry if you can hear the maintenance people, they're cutting our lawn right now. Now it's time to build your financial plan. You'll go through categories like expense, debt, sinking fund, giving, long-term savings, investment, checking fund. We'll do an example of each. Your checking fund is just the money intentionally set aside to act as a buffer in your checking account. Make sure to enter the amount you plan to allocate to each category, and don't forget to fill in your starting amount to reflect what you already have saved when you're starting out. You won't enter debt amounts or investment amounts here, only money that you have saved. And for your checking fund, you can estimate what you think you have extra in the account that's not going towards bills. If you're not sure what you actually have as a buffer in your checking account, you can just keep this as 0. Expenses usually 0, debt 0, car insurance, maybe you have $200 saved already, donations 0, emergency fund, you have $10,000, Roth IRA, maybe you haven't saved anything towards it. And by saved towards a Roth IRA, I mean set cash aside to invest, not like how much you've invested so far. So we'll say this is $2,500, car insurance, donations, emergency fund, Roth IRA, and checking fund. This is a zero-based budget, so make sure the total left over to budget is $0 for each month. You can find this in multiple places. It's at the bottom left over to budget, and then it's also at the top left over to budget just to make it a little bit easier for you to see. But after you fill it in, you're gonna see this is how much I have left over to work with. So maybe you want to invest in a taxable brokerage account, or you want to save for a vacation, or maybe you want to just put it towards your emergency fund. But you're going to want to make sure that this number is 0. So we're going to do all of that in the emergency fund. And again, I just pull these over so I can have my plan. And we see we still have those extra paychecks we need to do something with. So in this case, I would probably put it in a taxable brokerage account. I want that to go under Roth IRA since it's an investment, but I already have checking fund. So what we're going to do is go here, copy everything except the category. Go down one, right click, paste special, values only. And then I'm going to manually update this to checking fund. When shifting around these numbers, you have to manually update the category for some reason or it messes up. So then I'm going to erase this one and update that to investment. And we're going to say taxable brokerage. And we're going to do $2,000 there and $2,000 there. That's what you do if you want to add any categories in the middle. You can just shift those down by pasting values only and then manually updating the categories on the left side. Think of this budgeting plan section as adding money into each category each month. So $100 in donation category means you have $100 to donate. $1,117 in your emergency fund means you're saving that much money in your emergency fund that month. If you didn't end up saving this full amount, you will have to update the actual number here in the planning tab. This is where the money is added to your buckets. This is what you're telling the budget you're saving. So if you transfer money into your savings account, you're not going to do a transaction for it. It's going to be accounted for here in the planning tab. The planning tab adds money to your categories and the transaction tab takes money away from your categories. Next, on the right, you'll enter your goals for the year. This is optional. It can be savings goals, debt payoff goals, anything else you're working towards. You'll enter a goal amount for the year. For example, if you have a $10,000 emergency fund and your goal is to increase it to $25,000, you would put $15,000 here because that's how much you need to save in these 12 months. And you can add how many months you want to save it towards, and it'll tell you an estimate of how much you should save each month to hit your goal. This is useful, for example, if you're saving for Christmas and it's already April and you want to save everything by November. Then you could add, well, my goal is to save $2,000 for Christmas and I only have 7 months to get there. So I'm gonna have to save $285 a month to make that goal by November. So that's an example of how you can use the goals. It's kind of just a guide. Next, you're gonna enter paycheck deductions. So you scroll down. If you have any automatic deductions that come out of your paycheck, like retirement contributions, health insurance, or HSA deposits, add those here. I like to update these after each paycheck so I have an accurate running total. I also like to separate out my 401k versus the 401k match since I try to max this out each year. So for example, I'll add investment, 401k, and this is my contributions, and then 401k match. And you can also add your goals for the year. So maybe this one is the full $23,500, which means you need to contribute about $2,000 every month to hit this goal. Adding money here won't affect your income numbers you entered above since those are after tax and deductions. These deductions will just show on your annual dashboard and the monthly dashboards. So this doesn't affect your income. Next, we'll scroll down and enter our payment accounts. These are any accounts you use to manage your money, like your checking account, Venmo, high yield savings account. This helps you when you're sorting your transactions tab. I also like to add a Zelle account here so I can keep track of everything I need to pay Logan for the month. I just do like Logan, Zelle, and then maybe checking, high yield savings account, Venture X. So instead of us sending money back and forth, I just tag those transactions that he paid for under Logan Zelle, and then I'll filter it out in the transactions tab. But I'll get to that later. Now at the top of the tab, you'll see a take-home breakdown. This visual helps you see how your income is being distributed across your plan. You'll also see the total amount planned and total left over to budget. You're gonna want this left over to budget to be 0. We wanna budget every single dollar. You also, at the bottom here in between the planning and the paycheck deductions, I just snuck in a little monthly breakdown so you can see any individual month what the breakdown actually is here. Okay, that's everything for the planning tab. This is probably where you're gonna spend the most amount of time. This is basically the setup for the entire year. So I expect this to take a bit of time for you to set up, especially if you've never budgeted before. Now we'll move on to the transactions tab. Once you've set your plan, the transaction tab is where you'll track all of your actual money movement throughout the month. If you use a credit card, do not track your credit card payments, only the individual transactions on the credit card. If you track both, it would be like double dipping. I personally track my credit card spending for the day I spend it, not for the month the credit card bill is due. This just ensures that you're always ahead of your credit card payment and you're using it more like a debit card. I go more into credit cards in my previous budget template tutorial, so I'll link that in the description along with a timestamp. So you will enter all of your spending here. You'll go through the month. This is optional, but you can add the day just to keep track. You add the subcategory, and the first time you drop it down, it's gonna be confused and you just click out and then go back and it'll populate. So we'll add rent, you'll add the amount. You can add the merchant, any notes, the account that you spent it from, and then essential or non-essential. It's important to tag the correct month and the subcategory so everything shows up accurately in the dashboard and your summaries. You'll track spending for every single category here: expenses, for debt, for your sinking funds. You'll just spend directly from these categories if you have any spending. If you spend from your emergency fund, you will do a transaction. If you save in your emergency fund, you will add that into your budgeting plan. However, there are a couple of nuances. You will track your actual income. So if you have a salary, you will add your paychecks here. So maybe this is paycheck 1, and this is paycheck 2. You will also do any investing. If you invest, you will add that here as well. So maybe you did 500 into Vanguard from your checking account. And this essential, non-essential, you don't have to tag every single thing. Like, I probably wouldn't tag any investing or income. And again, a reminder, if you're putting money into a sinking fund or long-term savings, do not track it here. You'll only track when you're spending from those funds. Any savings will be accounted for in the planning tab, like we discussed before. That's where money goes in. Transactions is where money goes out. If you do want to log when you save into a sinking fund just for personal notes, you can go ahead and add it here. So we can say maybe on the 5th, you added to your car insurance sinking fund and you added $100. You would not do it in the amount. You would leave the amount blank. In the merchant, you would say transferred $100 or something. You would just keep notes in the other sections. You would not add it in the amount. If you added it in the amount, that says you took money out, but you want to track putting money in just for your personal notes. So that is an option if you want to just keep it all in the transactions tab. And sometimes the filters get a little bit wonky. So what I would suggest is highlighting all of these, go to data, remove filter, go back to data and create a filter, and it should reset all of the filters. If you have any issues with conditional formatting, like the colors aren't showing up properly, it's probably because you deleted entire rows. The formula is actually in column C for the conditional formatting. You can unhide the column and make sure the formula is correct, but if that's a little bit too confusing, just don't erase the entire row, just erase from day to essential. Just like keep the month the same. You can always manually update the month, but if you delete the whole thing, it's going to delete the formula too. The actual numbers will all be accurate. You just won't see the colors. By keeping this tab updated, the rest of your budget will reflect your real spending habits automatically. Now, I do want to run through one nuance with the transactions, and that is tracking refunds and reallocations. When you track a refund, you'll be able to budget with that money, but it's not going to count as income because that would also be double dipping. To do this, you add a line item in your planning tab under the income section as a refund. So you would give it a name, refund. And let's say you returned $100 worth of stuff. You would add that $100 to here. And now we need to tell the template, we got the $100, but it's not income. So we go back to the transactions tab, enter January, refund, $100. Now the template knows if we go back, we have $100 left to budget, but we do not have an extra $100 of income. Now reallocations here for sinking funds and long-term savings, we'll want to give these a name. Like if you have a bunch of money in a sinking fund and you're like, I'd rather just put this in my emergency fund, you would use a reallocation for that. Reallocations will be rare. You probably won't even do one. This is not for just spending money. This is for taking money out and putting it somewhere else. So I'm going to do just a random example. I'm going to add travel. And let's say we have $5,000 here. And I'm like, I have $5,000, but I actually want to move half of that into my emergency fund because I would just rather get my emergency fund done quicker. So what you would do is go to reallocation of a sinking fund because you're taking money out of your sinking fund. You're going to take $2,500 out. So now you have $2,500 you can budget with, and you're going to put that towards your emergency fund. Great. But now your income is $7,000, which isn't accurate. So we have to tell the template, this isn't actually income. So we go to transactions again, and you say reallocation, sinking fund, $2,500. So that's just telling the template, this wasn't income, but I did want to move that money around and budget with it. And now what we need to do is say, I took money out of my travel fund. So we're going to do a transaction for travel and say I took $2,500 out. And what I usually do is reallocated to emergency fund. Travel to emergency fund. So now we have our notes. Now we know this wasn't actually spent on travel. This was reallocated to our emergency fund, and all of our numbers are up to date. Again, this isn't how you spend money from a sinking fund. This is how you take money out of a sinking fund to put it somewhere else. If you actually spent money from a sinking fund, you would just do, for example, this row here. You would say, January 4th, I paid my car insurance bill for $300. You would just do a normal transaction. Now we're going to move on to the annual dashboard. The annual dashboard is your big picture view of the entire year. It's designed to help you reflect on how your money has flowed across all categories with charts, summaries, and highlights. And this is capturing data for just the 12 months in this template. For example, if you start with a $10,000 emergency fund, you don't save anything into it, and you end up spending $2,000, this is going to show that your emergency fund is negative $2,000. That doesn't mean you have negative $2,000. That means the change in your emergency fund for these 12 months was $2,000. So just want to give a heads up of what these numbers are for the annual dashboard. This is showing how your categories and how your money has changed within the 12 months. It's not going to take into account your starting amounts. So what we're going to do is make sure we're updated to the current month so we get the current numbers. Now we'll look at the year in review table. This is going to show what you planned versus what you actually spent across all major categories like debt, savings, giving, and investments. It also shows your averages and what's remaining in each bucket. This section gives you a quick pulse check on whether your plan is holding up over time. The percentage is a visual of how much you've spent versus your plan for the whole year so far. On the right, you'll see key financial metrics such as gross and net income. Net income is just the amount you enter in your transactions tab. For example, this will be your net income planned, and what you enter in the transaction tab is the net income tracked. So this is your actual net income that will show up in the annual dashboard. The gross income is going to take into account those paycheck deductions that you track in the planning tab. So when you add things here, it's going to account that into your gross income because that is also part of your income. Like the taxes that you pay is also the money that you got. You're just paying taxes. You also have total expenses, total saved, debt payments, investments, and your net worth and debt updates, which will pull directly from your debt payoff tracker and net worth tracker tabs we will get into later. You'll also see your save rate with a drop down to toggle between your save rate on investments. You can just go ahead and say, don't show this again. Or how much cash savings, how much you've paid towards debt, the total overall save rate. Then you have a chart showing your essential versus non-essential spending. And then we've got a lot more charts. Income breakdown is where your income actually comes from, and where my money went is how it was allocated between investing, spending, debt, giving, all of your different categories. Both of these can be toggled between your gross and your take-home numbers. Take-home is how much you allocate after taxes and deductions, and gross is going to include your 401k, HSA, taxes, all of that. You also have your expense breakdown, what categories took up the biggest portion of your budget, investment breakdown, a visual breakdown of where your investment dollars went, and then you'll see a little wrapped for the year, highest and lowest spend months, highest net worth increase, biggest debt payoff. These insights help you reflect on what's working, spot any patterns, and plan better for the next year. You'll also be able to see a little chart of your spending over the months and just honestly, a million more charts. There's a lot of information here. So now we'll go over to our monthly dashboard. The monthly dashboard helps you stay on track during the month and gives you an in-depth look of how you're doing compared to your plan. You'll use one of these dashboards for each month of the year. The month in review is where you can compare each category's planned amount versus actual spending, along with average and how much is remaining. This is also available for every individual category. At the end of the month, I like to review how much I have remaining in each category to make sure it makes sense. Sometimes I realize I forgot a bill and need to enter it in my transactions. And as a note, this remaining amount is a rolling number, meaning it's going to take your remaining balance and roll them over month to month. For example, if you plan to spend $500 in January on groceries, but you only spend $450 and you have $50 remaining, that means in February, you're going to have a total remaining amount of $550. So the $500 you planned plus the $50 that was remaining from last month. If you prefer not to roll over your expenses month to month, you can always go in here and just copy over those expenses or maybe your debt. Go into the planning tab, right click, values only, and it will zero it out so you don't have things rolling over month to month. And then if you have anything left over to budget, you can just reallocate that money inside of your template. So at the top of the page, you'll see your planned income versus actual income. When the two match, it turns green, and when they don't, it'll be red. If they don't match, you'll need to either update your income in the transactions. So you would go, oh, these are red. I need $550 left over. Yeah, I made $500 in my side hustle and $50 in high yield savings account interest, but I forgot to add them. So I'm gonna go in here and add 500, and high yield savings account is 50. And you go back to your monthly tab, and now it's green. So we're good to go. If you did enter all of your income and these are still not matching up, you're gonna have to go to the planning tab and update your actual income numbers. So these need to match for you to have accurate numbers on your budget. We also have total expenses and total saved, debt payments, total invested. These numbers update as you log your spending in the transactions tab. The checking buffer, this shows how much is left as a buffer in your checking account at the end of the month. It helps you spot whether you're over or under spending. Just make sure all of your transactions are entered before relying on this number. It will be up to date at the end of the month. Then we have net worth and debt updates. These will be updated based off of your actual balances at the end of the month. So you're not actually editing anything in the monthly dashboards. This is just for viewing purposes only. You will only edit things in the planning tab and the transactions tab when it comes to your budget. Now, the rest of this is very similar to the annual dashboard. You have your save rate, non-essential, essential spending, your income breakdown, where your money went. You also have a breakdown of your savings. This is your net savings based off of how much you saved and how much you spent in every category. And then of course you have your expense breakdown and investment breakdown. There are built-in links that let you jump between months quickly here. And you can go back to January. If a month isn't in use, you can always hide that dashboard to keep the spreadsheet clean. So let's say you hid right click a tab and hide sheet. You can hide like literally all of the future months here just to clean up the sheet. And then when you're ready to go to the next month, you can go down here, click month 2. On the left, it'll say unhide. You'll say okay. And then now you have your February dashboard. There is also a transaction log for the month at the bottom. By checking the dashboard regularly, you can adjust your habits in real time, so there are no surprises at the end of the month. Next, we'll move on to an optional tab. This is the savings goal estimator. This tab helps you stay motivated and realistic when working towards a big savings goal, like building an emergency fund, saving for a trip, or setting aside money for a future investment. You're going to start by making sure you have the current year and the current month. So your current year is going to be the year it is when you start this template. So if you start at the end of 2025 and then it becomes January 2026, you're not going to update this to 2026. You're just going to keep it as 2025. Now, there are 5 different goals we can enter here. 6-month emergency fund. And our goal amount is $25,000. Our starting amount is $10,000. We're saving, let's see, what are we saving? We're saving an average of $1,300. So this will be done by the end of 2025. So this is just going to give you an idea of when you can expect to hit a savings goal. It is important, do not edit the estimated goal date number. This is going to automatically populate. As you go through the year, you'll be able to see your progress here for how much is left to save. And an optional tip is once you make a one-time deposit, like a tax refund or a bonus, you can manually update this total saved amount for that month. This will make your goal timeline even more accurate. I like to just use this tab as a guide to see how long I can expect a goal of mine to take. I don't necessarily keep up with it every month, but if you're really glued into a certain goal, you certainly can update this every single month. Next, we have the debt payoff tracker. This tab helps you stay organized and intentional as you pay down your debt, whether it's student loans, a credit card, or mortgage. We're going to start by updating to the current year. Again, this is just the year that you started the template. And then we're going to say it's January 2025. Under the debt breakdown section, you'll see a list of common debt types. Categories with the blue text are fully customizable. So if your category isn't here, you can edit it here. Feel free to rename them to match your specific loans. If you don't use a category, you can simply just hide the rows. So let's say we only have credit card debt. We can just hide these. Just make sure you're not adding rows or deleting rows. Next, we're gonna go down here. We have 20 different options to slot in for debts here. So we're gonna do credit card, and you're gonna choose your credit card category. Maybe you only have $1,000, your payment is $100, you're not paying anything extra, and your interest rate is 22%. So this is gonna automatically calculate what your estimated payoff date is and how much interest you're gonna pay over the life of the loan. And this is just a snapshot of when you started. So this total interest paid is from the moment you start this template and enter your information until you pay off your debt. What I like to do to keep this completely up to date is once a month, I will go in and manually update this loan amount section for that month and say, this is how much money I have this month. And so I just like to keep it exact. That is totally optional. It's going to be relatively close to your actual debt amounts, but if you want it to be exact, once a month, you can go in and update it. Also, if you have a one-time extra payment, you can add it in the extra payment column. So let's say you add a one-time $500 payment, it's going to reflect the future payments. And just a tip, if you're tracking a mortgage here, make sure the minimum payment reflects just the principal and interest, not also the taxes and insurance. Also, if you refinance, don't update the interest rate at the top. You can just update the interest rate for the month that you did it. So let's say here you refinance it down to 10. It'll update the future months, and then you can just update like your minimum payment, all the other stuff. And what I would recommend doing in that case is taking the loan amounts before you refinanced, copy those, and then paste special values only so you can update your minimum payment to the new amount without it affecting those previous payments. This is also why I like to personally just update my loan amount every month, because I have an exact snapshot of what my debt was in that month, and it's not going to be affected by future formula changes. Like I said, there are 20 options for debt here. So what I would do is just go ahead and hide all the ones that I don't actually need. So we only have one debt, so we're going to hide all of these. And now we can see our total right here. We're gonna have our total starting debt, our total minimum payments, total extra payments, average interest rates, interest paid. Everything is in one place. The only thing is it might make these a little bit wonky, but there we go. We can see our total breakdown chart of what our debt is, and then our chart of our total debt versus total payoff. So now we're gonna go to the net worth tracker. This helps you monitor how your overall financial picture is improving month over month. You're gonna start again by making sure your month is up to date, and then you're gonna add your categories for your net worth. Everything in blue is able to be edited. The only caveat is investment cannot be edited, and these 4 underneath investment are part of only investments. So these can't just be cash. It has to be something with investments. I like to do pre-tax investment, Roth investment, taxable, and maybe if you have like gold or crypto or something like that, you can track those separately if you want. So if a category doesn't apply to you, maybe you don't own a home, you can just hide that row. Again, don't delete rows or add rows. You can hide them, however. You can also set a net worth goal. So maybe your net worth goal is to hit $10,000. We also have a progress bar here. Sometimes it gets kind of weird, so you can double click into it and look at this min and max and set your parameters. So the max could be your goal, and then the minimum could be like what your net worth is now, or just 0. And that might make it easier to see your progress. There's also a net worth chart showing your total net worth over the year and the total change. And then we're gonna actually enter our data. So you're gonna name all of your assets. So maybe it's 401k, high yield savings account, Roth IRA, your checking account, and then add your category. So 401k would be pre-tax, this is cash, this is Roth, this is cash, and then just enter the amounts. So now you can go up here and see your charts, your asset breakdown, you're mostly in cash, your investment breakdown, you mostly have Roth. On the first of every month, I like to go in and update my numbers for that month. And then you can have an accurate picture of your net worth over time. And these total liabilities here and the total liabilities here are pulled directly from your debt payoff tracker. So make sure that is up to date as well. Next, we have a new addition to this template is the bill calendar. The bill calendar helps you track all of your upcoming payments and income in a visual month at a glance format, so you never miss a due date or forget when money is hitting your account. You're gonna again start by setting up what the current month is. We'll say January, and the current year is 2025. The bill list will automatically populate your subcategories just to make it easier on you. You can manually update the amount due if this is different, because this is gonna pull just like the average amount. So feel free to change the amount due, and then only bills with a due date set will show up on the calendar. So for example, rent is due on the 1st, we add a 1, and now it shows up on the calendar here. Any bills here that don't have a date, it's just not going to show. You can also use the yellow rows at the bottom to add any custom bills like credit card payments or subscriptions. You won't enter credit card payments into your transactions tab like we said before, but you can enter the payments here if you're not quite a month ahead yet and you need to track your balances more closely to avoid overdrafting. We'll add CC payment of $500 on the 3rd. Next, you're going to add your income below that. This is where you add your expected income, the amount, and the date you expect to receive it. So we're going to add our paychecks, paycheck 1 and paycheck 2, and we get paid $2,000 each, and maybe it's the 5th and the 20th. So now that we have those, we can see them on this calendar. As you pay bills or receive income throughout the month, you can check them off here. So you pay rent, you can check it off. It's going to add to your bills that are paid, and it's going to show on your bill calendar that that was paid off. And same for your income. It's going to show that this was received. At the top, you'll see a quick snapshot showing your total income you've received so far in the month. And this is just going to pull automatically from your transactions tab. So you technically don't have to check this off to show it, but this is just going to show visually that you got paid. So this is your income so far and your checking fund. And it's also going to tell you how many bills that you have paid, what has been pulled from your bank account, and the amount you have left over. This is great for gauging how much flexibility you have left for the month. And this is really useful if you're just starting out budgeting and you're not quite a month ahead yet. I highly recommend keeping a close eye on the bill calendar if that is you. So this is just going to keep you updated day by day to make sure that you have leftover money in that checking account. And you can update this month over month just by going here and saying, okay, now we're in February and I'm going to uncheck all these boxes and I'm going to update, I'm getting paid the 7th this month and the 17th this month. And then my credit card payment is due on the 5th this month, and rent is still the 1st. So you can just update it month over month. And if you have a lot of bills, you've checked marked all these off, and you want an easy way to just remove them without manually doing it, you just highlight C, go to find and replace, find true, and replace with false, and replace all. Again, this bill calendar is just an extra thing just to visually represent your bills. This isn't necessary for the template. If you're just confused, how do I know how much money I have? How do I know how much is going towards bills? How much I have left for spending? This is going to be very useful for you. Now we're going to move on to the emergency fund calculator. This helps you figure out exactly how much money you need to save in case of a job loss or unexpected life event, so you can build a safety net that's tailored to your lifestyle. You're going to start by reviewing the list of spending categories. Again, these are pulled in automatically from your planning tab. Use the checkmark boxes and select only the categories you still plan on spending on during the emergency. So you're going to go through and say, yeah, I'm still going to pay rent, so I'm going to add that. I'm still going to pay my student loans. I still have to pay my car insurance. I'm probably not going to donate during an emergency or save in my emergency fund. I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to travel. So these are the only 3 things that I'm going to be spending money on during this emergency. And then you're going to make sure the monthly spend amount is accurate. So for example, if you pay extra towards your student loans and it averages out to $500 a month, but your minimum payment is only $300, in an emergency, maybe you're only paying $300, so you're going to update that here to $300. If anything is missing here, you can always go to the bottom in these yellow tabs and add custom categories as well. If you expect to receive some income during your emergency, like unemployment benefits, if you have side hustle income or part-time work, you can add that to minimum income per month here. So maybe this person has $250 a month they always earn from pet sitting. So they want to account that in their emergency fund, so they make sure that they're not saving too much. This is optional just if you want to make sure you're not over saving, because I have a tendency to oversave. So I want to be realistic in my emergency fund. And that gives us a monthly minimum need of $2,250 a month. And then you can go down here and say, well, I have $10,000 saved already. So 1 month checked off, 2 months, 3 months. I have 4 months right now checked off. And I want to get to maybe 12 months. So I know my goal is to save $27,000. This is just trying to turn a big goal into smaller, achievable milestones and keep you motivated along the way. It's also just an easier way for you to estimate your emergency fund. Lastly, we have our goal tracking page. So goal tracking tab helps you track progress on important habits, systems, or financial routines. What you're going to do is enter your goal. So personally, I have a monthly money reset timeline. I'm going to do this once a month. My why is keeping up to date on my finances. And then you enter your milestones. So I'm going to do update net worth, update debt, reconcile savings accounts. And what this means is every month I'll go into my monthly dashboard and say, I have $2,600 remaining in my sinking funds. That means I need to transfer money into my high yield savings account under sinking funds and make sure it matches $2,600. I only do one transaction every month for my sinking funds. I don't like to put money in and out of my accounts a million times. During my monthly money reset, I'll just look at my savings, remaining amount, and transfer money in or out of my high yield savings account to match that. And then maybe it's like Zelle Logan. And what that would mean is at the end of every month, I go in here. For example, let's say he paid rent and I need to Zelle him. I would go here and clear and filter out only the ones that he Zelled. And this is a good example. The filter is like kind of messed up. So I would just highlight this, data, remove, data, create filter, and then try again. There we go. It's gonna show me everything that I owe him. There's more stuff, but I'll leave it there. Basically, once a month, I'll go through here, and once I finish like updating my net worth, I'll cross it off, updating my debt, cross it off, and it'll give you a real-time percentage of how much you've done. And then at the top, it'll show you an overall how many milestones you've achieved, what is your total milestone, and what is your progress. I like to do that just to keep track of my monthly money reset, but you can also do this for just honestly any goals that you have. Now, if you have my old template and you're wondering how to transfer that data into the new template, here is my 2024 template. And what I'm gonna do is highlight subcategory over to account and highlight literally everything, copy it, go into your new template, right click, paste special, values only. And now all of that data is now in here. It looks a little wonky, we'll fix it. And then go back to your old template and do the month separately. The reason we did this is because I added day. So if you highlighted all of it, it's not gonna work. So now we're gonna do all of the months and then go into the new template, right click, paste special, values only. And now we have all of this here. And then the next important part is going over to your planning tab. So you're gonna basically copy the numbers. So starting number through the end, copy that, go to here, right click, paste special, values only for all the numbers. Now it gets a little wonky when you do this because if you have anything that's a 0, like this, if it looks like a dash in the middle, it's going to mess up your formulas because it thinks it's text. So you have to delete anything that has that dash in the middle because it's going to give you a reference error. So we're going to go through here and delete all of these ones. I think that's everything. Okay. And then I'm going to highlight these, copy, control, paste special, values only. Now we have all of those in there. And then we need to do the income plan. You're going to highlight all the numbers, control, paste values only. And then I would personally just manually update the category and the subcategory for the income section, just because this is C and D. If you copy and paste it, it's going to copy it into one cell and it's going to split the cell. So you can go ahead and copy the numbers in, but I would just manually update the subcategory and the categories for the income section specifically. So now if you go to the transactions tab, you can see that these are all actually working now because it's pulling from the planning tab. So that's literally how you get all of your data over. Then you can worry about all the extra fluff. So paycheck deductions, I would personally paste values only the numbers and manually update the category and subcategory. And for payment accounts, I would also just manually update this one. But everything else, all the numbers, like the majority of the work, you can just copy from your previous template and paste values only. And the same thing for the debt payoff tracker. You can just take this, copy it through the interest rate, and then go over and paste, and it should be the same. And you can do that for all of these. And you can do the same thing for your net worth tracker. You can just go in and copy, paste values, all the numbers. So you're basically just gonna go in and make sure all the numbers make sense. Now, to confirm that all of this got transferred over correctly, you're gonna wanna look at your latest monthly dashboard of your old template and compare it to the latest monthly dashboard of your new template and make sure all of these numbers in the month in review and the remaining amounts, these are all the same. And you're also going to want to go into your annual dashboard and make sure all of those look accurate, all your net worth update numbers look accurate, debt update numbers look accurate. But honestly, I've transferred these over 1,000,000 times. It takes maybe like 5 minutes. So don't be intimidated if you're like, oh no, now I need to transfer all my numbers. It does not take that long. And you can always just continue with the template you have currently through the end of the template and then use this new one for the next year. But that is everything. Now you've seen all of the tabs in the template. You understand that the planning tab is how you put money in. The transactions tab is how you take money out. You know you still have to track your investments and your income in the transactions tab. You understand that this is a zero-based budget and that all your numbers for leftover to budget should be zero at the end of each month. And you understand how to make your full plan for the entire year. The hardest part is the initial setup because you are simply budgeting for an entire year, making a financial plan. After you complete the initial setup of your template, it should really only take 20 to 30 minutes of maintenance a month to make sure all of this is up to date. I recommend keeping up with your transactions more often than not. It's going to save you time in the long run. If you have to just do it once a month, it's okay, but it's going to make it a little bit more stressful if you have a bunch to do. I personally like doing it basically every day, just like 2 seconds when I wake up. If I'm already on my computer, I'll just go in and update my transactions for the day, but it's totally a personal preference. Like I said, if you have any questions or issues, you can email me at help@mackenzie-mac.com. You can also leave a comment on YouTube. I'm going to take any frequently asked questions and add it to the written instruction sheet. So make sure to keep up to date there. If you're curious, if you've asked a question, I'm going to try to answer them all there. It is a little bit difficult to answer every individual question. So if I do not reach back out to you, I apologize, but I have seen your messages and I'm pulling together answers for you in a document where it'll benefit more than just one person. It'll be able to answer questions for everyone. That is everything. And thank you so much for purchasing. I really hope you love it. This tool has completely changed my perspective on money, and I really hope it helps you have a longer term outlook on your finances and your financial goals.